You look trimmer. Are you a trimmer?
I wish. But no, I'm working on it though.
Well, you look great.
Thanks. You're the sweetest.
Well, I think there's like mother amnesia. Like once you get out of a certain, because I noticed it, it was like 2 weeks after something. I was like, oh yeah, remember when this was so hard or this was so like this? This is crazy because it's not like that anymore. Yeah. And it's like, you just forget. And so I think that's where the whole mother judgment thing can get really hardcore is it's like, oh, I would never do that. It's like, well, you probably would or did, and you don't remember because like your brain is messed up.
Yeah.
And there's actual shifts in the gray matter, right? You probably know that, right? It's like, and so I was like, okay, I'm not supposed to be normal right now. It's fine. It is. Yeah. And anyways, just kind of running with it. Sorry, I'm jumping the gun. Am I jumping the gun?
No problem at all. I will cut and use that right at the beginning.
Oh,
that was
perfect.
Awesome. All right. The 5 Elements of Letting Go. The podcast. Discussing mental health openly and freely, and learning tools and techniques to find peace. So hello everyone, welcome to the 5 Elements Letting Go. I'm Dr. Jared McCollum. My guest tonight is Tanya Ryan. And just a little introduction to Tanya. Tanya, I've known you for over 8 years or something now, maybe 10. The very first time I met Tanya Ryan was in a yoga class. And I'm, going through the class. It was a lot of fun. I remember your dad was there. You giving him a hard time. And it was a really fun class. I was really amazed at how you, the flow and connection in the class and how you taught it. I was like, wow, this is a really excellent yoga teacher. And that was a long time ago. It's like you've gotten so good. And, we're laying there in Shavasana, my eyes are closed, and then I'm like, that is the most amazing sound system I've ever heard. There's an angel singing in the room. And then I open my eyes, peeking, and you're singing to us. And it was amazing. And I'm like, wow, she should really sing more. And I had no idea that Tanya is a singer, and she, she's got some albums now. She's been down to Nashville. She's won contests. She sings at the Stampede every year. She is a rock star, a country rock star, I guess, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. So she's a yoga teacher. She is do readings with tarot and stuff like that. She's a fantastic singer. She's a writer. You got a blog, but you end up in the paper at least once a month. And she's a shit stir.
What is it? Provocative.
Yeah,
that's
provocateur. One thing I love about Tanya is she says what's on her mind, and she does it in a way never to piss anyone off, but just like, this is real. And I'm going to talk about it because we should. And you do a fantastic job of it.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you. We need more of that in this world.
So can I tell you about my philosophy with that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so you know how you've heard the term light worker? Okay. And for anyone that maybe hasn't heard it, it's just essentially a term that's adopted by people who, I would just to generalize, are doing their part to be good in the world sort of thing. They're kind of spreading the light, so to speak. And so I think that a lot of people do this by keeping, a positive vibe, or they try to keep their vibration high, or they're doing it by spreading kindness or whatever that is. And that's amazing. I think there's just this second part to it that gets forgotten, which is if you share your shadows and you spread light on your shadows, they're not shadows anymore. And so that's spreading light too. And so that's kind of my philosophy is, well, I'm going to open up my closet and I'm going to let you in all the deep, dark corners because they're here. And the more light I can put here, then the less shadows there are.
Yeah. Very interesting. I know for myself in my practice, when I first started, I'm wearing like a, shirt and tie or sweater vests or whatever, trying to put out this image of perfection or he's got it all together, all of this. And over time, as I got more confidence in myself and in my practice, it's just like, patients crave authenticity and real. And I thought, I'm going to choose to be more myself. Of course, I hired someone that kind of pushed me in that direction. Crystal was like, you're crazy underneath that sweater vest. Let's bring this out.
Yeah.
And she was very good at that. And so, I started getting more tattoos and just letting myself be myself. And it's interesting how when you do that, when you put out your real self, people crave that so much that you build really good connections with people when they see, oh, you are you. You're not pretending to be this thing. You're not, hiding behind this facade. You're a real person and you have real weaknesses and difficulties just like me. You're doing your best just like me. And there's something about that creates a connection, but also shows my patients that, we're all in this and we're all trying to do our best to find balance and health. And I think way too often, health practitioners try to make everyone think that they have this perfect plan and they're doing it perfectly and have it all figured out, which just creates this distance where there's a kind of a bit of lack of trust because I could never do what they do. Not that they're doing it, but they're pretending that they're doing it. But yeah, I love that, putting light on your shadows because I throw my shadows out everywhere.
I know. I was going to say I'm like the straight-laced version of you. I'm like, yeah, no, not a fit. Yeah.
So in what ways do you, what things have you done to help shine that light on your shadows?
I talk about suicide pretty candidly and depression, obviously. Yeah. And then more recently, I've been talking about postpartum depression and postpartum challenges that I've gone through. And predominantly because I had so much, I benefited so much by other people sharing their stories with me. Just reading, because I ended up being in a bunch because of COVID, I was in online support groups. I couldn't get it together with any real people, which probably created its own layer of challenge in and of itself.
For sure.
But anyways, people would post these. It was almost like that people would just share their, crap of the day. Am I allowed to swear? What's the swearing?
This is an explicit podcast,
okay,
so say whatever the fuck you want.
Okay, great. I like to ask first. Okay.
Yeah.
So people would be sharing, what happened to them that day. And so reading other people's stories, you're like, oh, because I think it's human nature. We don't want to feel ostracized. We don't want to feel alone. Like we're herd animals, essentially. And we need to feel like we're in a community. And as soon as we start to feel isolated and alone, and that's when things go sour.
Yeah.
And so reading people's posts, I was like, oh, this is normal. This is okay. It's okay that I feel this way. Okay, this will pass. Or because, someone would post and then they'd get many, many comments and and it was actually really incredible just to see how much support was there for these people. But so most of your comments was, you can get through this. It's going to pass. Don't worry. Not don't worry, but just kind of just basically validating this sucks and you're going to get through it and it's going to be okay in the end.
Trust yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I wish this was more public, because this was really obviously, there was a lot of connection within the group, but the group is very private and rightfully so because people should be able to express these things privately if that's what they feel more comfortable doing. Yeah. And so I decided to use my platform, a public platform, to make it to normalize it more publicly so that people, because of course I had this baby and then people are like, oh, isn't it amazing? Don't you just love it? Isn't it wonderful? And I, there's of course these little ladies and I'm just lying through my teeth to them because I'm not wanting to tell them, no, I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it. There's nothing I would do anything over this. This is not what I want to do. And I regret this decision entirely. I think I was stupid to do this. I am not good at this. This is not a role I should have taken. And all these thoughts, and I'm just smiling and nodding yeah, it's great. It's great. Love it. Mm-hmm. And then, with the people that I love, like you had Madison Krebs on your show, so I tell her all the things. But, it was kind of this imposed upon new moms that everything should be wonderful. And some people do. They love newborns, and that's so great. And then some people don't. And I think it's just normalizing that, you don't have to love every phase that your kid goes through to love your kid.
Yeah.
So
I've always described newborn babies as parasites.
that's what I did.
And
The whole 9 months he was in me, and then afterwards.
exactly. And some people will be a little offended by that. But I'll tell you, newborns, other than being really cute, and that's why they're cute, because if they weren't, we wouldn't keep around, because they take so much from you initially. And they really don't give much back until at least like 12, 18 weeks, maybe longer, where they can start to, they look at you and they react and respond. And then it gets a little funner at that point. But I tell you, at the beginning, it is hard work.
Totally.
And, to pile on someone who's dealing with postpartum and judging them, what a terrible thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh. So continue your story.
No, I don't have much story other than that, unless you want me to get into I guess you saw the Instagram post.
Well, so I'll let our listeners know that you did share that publicly. You wrote an article that was in the paper.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
Oh, thank you, because it was just trying to be funny.
Because again, when we're dealing with comedy, you have to understand, the individual and where they're coming from. And if you aren't open to, and understand that, comedy can be really dark. And that's it's very therapeutic when we get really cathartic and dark and let that out. I knew you, so I knew where it was coming from. But so that got put out there, and I think it was posted, of course, online through the Western Wheel. Yep. And you had a few negative comments.
Yeah, I had a whole nice thread there. What was funny about reading it, so this girl posted it, and it was fine. I read it. It actually didn't shake me or affect me, because it happens. I have written things, and of course, when you have an opinion, and you would well know this, if you have an opinion and a strong one, you're going to meet people that have a different opinion, and that's fine. That's okay. Yeah. People are allowed to have different opinions. So generally speaking, I don't feel that threatened when someone comes in with a different opinion. It's like, okay. Yeah. And I kind of sit there and think, well, that wasn't for you. I write my pieces and I know who they're for, and they're for someone, and it just wasn't for you, and that's okay. Yeah. My husband doesn't like peas and I do. They're not for him, they're for me. It's fine. And so, so she wrote that thing. What surprised me was not that she wrote that and that, she said what she said. That was a little bit insensitive. But it was actually how many people glommed onto it, and they went onto a spiral, and then they all kept kind of egging each other on. Yes. So I was more disappointed in just the human experience of no one's got any sort of understanding here, none. Okay, well that's okay. Yeah. And I did go on the thread and address it directly as well. And just basically say hello, you're talking about me. Yeah. And yes, I had postpartum, or I have had postpartum depression, and it's a real thing and it sucks. And I deal with real things that suck by making fun of them. And my kids loved, and we're all good. Thanks for checking in with all the compassion that you have here. So, I was just basically saying I was just this is incredibly cruel. And anyway, she ended up deleting the thread. So there was that.
And I think, I know when I delete a thread, it's to a point where I'm like, okay, I was wrong. I look stupid. Let's delete this. So I'm hoping that that's where she came from, where she's just this is getting dark and nasty. We should just end this and take it away from everyone.
I hope so too. Yeah.
Because I remember you, in your Instagram, you shared, some of the things that were said. And it was just crazy because if you were harming your child, yes, you can say things like that. But you say in the article, your child's okay, he's loved, I'm doing my best. But to just attack you when they know you are depressed already, you've flat out said, I'm dealing with this and it's real. And to just attack you. It just blowed my mind that what lack of compassion, in some people.
It's just funny. So, spoiler alert.
Uh-huh.
There is another column coming out in response to that.
And you're writing this one as well?
It's already, I think it's out this week.
Okay.
I'd actually have to look. So anyways, it's kind of funny. So what I say, it inspired something in me because I was sitting there, and of course, when I read her initial comment, I didn't feel like have much of a reaction. But then the more comments I read, I got frustrated because I was like really, like no one's coming in and just saying like, yeah, I had a baby and it sort of sucked for a little while. Like I just couldn't believe that there was no one. Mind you, like attracts like, so there was that.
Yeah, and those that have those experiences, because everyone was piling on, of course, it's going to take a very brave person to interject.
Totally. So I was just, it made me think about it. And of course, then I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this girl that posted this, obviously she was raised in a space where her negative feelings weren't welcome, like where her negative feelings were intimidating, or they were frowned upon, or it's like, no, don't cry. Like, have you ever heard that, thing that someone would say to you in like the 80s or 90s, was like, don't cry or I'll give you something to cry about?
Yes.
It's like, oh yeah, that's the most helpful thing you can say in this
my brother said that to me all the time. I'm sure my father said that a few times.
Perfect. I remember someone said it to me once. I was a really sensitive kid, and I just remember being like, I thought he was going to kill me. Like that was like, and I wasn't dramatic. Like I legitimately felt my life, like it was this big man, and I was like 5 years old, and I was crying for whatever reason. And he said that to me, and I remember feeling like, oh my God, if I do not stifle my crying right now, he will hurt me. And like, what a horrible thing to do to a little kid. But anyways, I digress. But yeah, so I just was like, well, okay, so this person obviously doesn't have the capacity to hold space for someone that's going through something or experiencing something that does come off as negative or scary or intimidating. And that's poopy. That sucks. And so, see, I'm used to censoring myself on radio. Yeah. This is good. This is all my 10 years of training on media. Good job, Tanya. Okay. So that was essentially what my article became about, was basically just saying, I'm sorry for you that you were not raised in a place where your feelings were welcome. And honestly, what a blessing for my kid that he is raised in a place where his feelings, no matter what he experiences, I will not deny his feelings. So if he feels angry, if he feels sad, if he feels depressed, if he feels scared, those feelings are not going to be scary for me because I've gone through all of them and then some. So he'll get to feel those and process them and digest them and experience them and grow to be a person that can hold space for someone that might be trying to push him down or be trying to call him names, and he can turn around and go, that sucks that you need to feel this way and you have to try to make me feel this way. So
it's so interesting because this type of parenting where you give that freedom to express those emotions, especially for young men, I would venture to say that 90% of the problems in this world, the root is toxic masculinity.
Wow, coming from a man.
But really,
my favorite podcast.
It's this approach that, only girls can show emotion. And then that's a negative thing or a weakness. And if you, as a boy, show any emotion, you're a pussy, or you are, and all these terms that are you a girl, you a woman, why on earth we allow, a woman to be a derogatory term? Blows my mind.
I know, it's really quite sad, isn't it?
And then we tell all these young men that you can't feel, you can't talk about it, you just got to soak it up, buddy, and be a man. And what has that done to men? Men are like 70+% of all suicides in the world. If you look at all the mass shootings, who are they done by? Like 99.9% they're men. And it's all this pent up emotion because they're not allowed to share it and express it. Why are so many more men in prison? Why, all these things where we're not allowing them to be honest with their emotions and express them and let them go. And there's and again, I mentioned this in the last podcast, but there's a great documentary called The Mask We Live In. And it's all about toxic masculinity and how harmful it is to men, but also particularly to women. Rape and misogyny and all these things that harm our communities because we don't allow men to express emotion. And that, that overalling, systematic system of toxic masculinity then harms women in that, they're not allowed to be honest with their emotions either. They're still expected to, but it's this negative weakness thing. And it is harming all of us, this idea. And the more we can stand up for being honest with how we feel and letting it out so that we can get help, that we can get support, that we can let go, I'm all for it. So what you're doing is fantastic.
Oh, thanks.
Just kick against the pricks and, literally.
No, it was good. It was funny because it was really, so since I have had, even when I was pregnant, I was really struggling with my mental health during pregnancy as well. And I kind of lost because I bought into a sales pitch that I shouldn't buy into, but it's really hard because I didn't realize how ingrained it was until I was facing it. But essentially, it's been ingrained into me that in my industry, you can't be a mom and be successful. Like, you kind of got to get it out while you're in your 20s and you're cute and hot and whatever. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it's you're out to pasture. And so when I was pregnant, I was quite depressed because I felt like I was losing my career and I was losing myself and I was losing my identity and everything I was. Then I had the baby and I did lose everything. It all went into a big pile of mush. And I lost the point. Damn.
That's okay.
I got to make notes while I'm doing
that's all
this.
Right. But you were talking about how, you're in your industry, you're not allowed to be a mom. You're not allowed to have that time to be you and to, have a child and work all that out because it's looked on negatively. And
yeah.
You chose to take that time to be a mom.
Oh, right. So I lost my mojo. Thank you. You're so helpful. I lost my mojo. See, I also lost my brain. Baby brain is real.
Yeah.
So I had no pizzazz because I was this huge pregnant person and I'm okay. And so I'm supposed to perform and energetically speaking, I could not project the way I wanted to. I couldn't move the way I wanted to because the pregnant body is just so different than my body.
Yeah.
And it was
hormonally, you're a totally different person.
It's crazy. And so I kind of, lost all my pizzazz. And so when they came back and they were guilt, shame, whatever, because what I write is, of course, on behalf of myself. But what I'm doing when I write is I'm trying to reach the people to make it safe for them to be who they are, right? I know that my people are out there.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to shine my little torch and be hey, I'm over here. And I'm representing our crew. So come and meet me. Yeah. So when she was saying all those things and all those people were glomming onto it, I'm you're not saying those about me. You're saying those about my people. You're saying those about my friends. And so I'm I felt fire and ambition. And I was okay, well, I'm going to talk about this more then because you're not supposed to make my people feel shame about what they're going through. And you're not supposed to, I'm not going to let you make anyone feel bad about making fun of a situation or calling their kid a fleshy ball of or a squishy ball of flesh, which I didn't even think was an insulting. I thought it was funny and endearing, but whatever.
Hey, my son was 26 pounds at 6 weeks.
Oh my God,
He
really?
was a squishy ball of flesh.
He would have been a
He looked
squishy
like a tiny booty and he could barely open his eyes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, that's a very, very correct statement.
Okay, so see, it's just accurate, people. It's not insulting. And so it just lit me up. I was well, I guess I got to keep talking about it because something's right here. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, that's fascinating. You know what? I have 3 sons, and with my ex-wife, we got a midwife right off the bat. We had all 3 kids at home. And what
was that like? Was it cool or
to have the kid at home?
Well, I had my kid at home, so I like to hear other people's stories.
Ours, of course, I remember. So this is 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So then it would be weirder.
Super weird.
Okay.
We lived in Victoria.
Right.
So you'd think, it wouldn't be that weird.
We would think that, yes.
But it was still even weird back then.
Right.
So...
Because you can still say midwife and people look at you like you're going to birth your baby in the barn. I'm no, she's a medical professional. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah, or you're choosing to have your child die at home.
Right? Yeah.
You know,
what is
like
with
that's
that?
that's what people think. And I'm like, we did it for millions of years and it worked. And it's just, you know, just in the last 100, 150 years, we stopped using midwives. And, you know, what's fascinating, there's this book I read prior to my ex getting pregnant. And it was all about midwifery and women's health and that whole process and just how, again, toxic the approach was to women. And then when they took that away from women, you know, midwifery and at-home births, the rate of deaths, you know, like child mortality just plummeted because they were killing these babies in the hospitals because they weren't washing their hands. And midwives knew how to do this for thousands of years, but in these hospitals, these men weren't doing it. And they were killing the mothers and the babies, you know, just making it this medical extraction rather than this natural thing that happens.
Well, do you know what I learned? It's like, so you know, you see it in all the movies of how the woman's laying on the bed and do you know why they put them that way? It's so the doctor could see better. It's not an effective labor position.
No,
it's so the doctor could see. And it's
position.
like, why? Yeah. But that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So anyway, my ex, she decided to, you know, we did an on-home pregnancy test. We thought, okay, we'll go to a walk-in clinic and confirm it. And so she went in and I waited out in the car and because she just wanted to go in on her own. And when she came out in tears because they confirmed the pregnancy, but then she asked the physician, she said, can you recommend a midwife or what do I have to do to work with a midwife? And he tore into her about how selfish and irresponsible she was to even consider having a midwife and how dangerous it is for your child and all this. Of course, he didn't know my ex-wife. Yeah, she got really sad and she cried, but it just pissed her off. And so she knew for sure she was getting a midwife at that point. Like, I had read all these things, so I was like, you know, if you want to do this, you know, I'd suggest it. I think it'd be a great thing for you and, you know, have a natural birth and do it at home and just what it does for a woman's self-esteem to, you know, have that experience that's about her and overcoming and getting through something like that.
It is pretty epic.
Yeah. And so we got a midwife. It was really nice. You know, the only thing, you know, it went through really nicely. We ended up having it at home. We had great midwives. You know, I set up the pool. She never went in it. She spent most of the time
this is our birth.
just hanging off my neck.
Yeah.
And shoulders, like my neck was in spasms all night later,
That's
but
so funny.
she just kind of stood and squatted.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a great birth, went really well. It was really nice. And, but after about 2 days, she kind of had this shift and she was not in a good place. And I had set up, luckily, all my courses that semester where they were all online, other than I had one night a week that I had to go in to do. So I had lots of time to be there to support her. And I'm glad that worked out because she just was terrified to be alone with the baby. And very early on, she said to me, and again, I'm grateful that she was able to express this to me and felt free that she could, but she's just like, you know, I'm just in this dark place. You know, I don't want to hurt our baby, but if someone took him, I'd be okay with that. And initially you're thinking, you know, there's that little part of your brain that wants to judge her and say, what a terrible person, what a terrible mom,
sure.
You know, all of this. But then I'm like, this isn't coming from a mean place. This is coming from like, this is a cry for help. And so I'm like, okay, we got this. I got the baby, you know, all you got to do is breastfeed. And I'll take care of everything else. And, you know, I had family helping out. So whenever I went to that class, I had someone at the house with them and it worked out great. You know, like for 6 months, I was able to be there and, you know, help her with everything. And it made a world of difference because eventually it was just as quickly as she kind of snapped into that dark place, she snapped out. And she's just like, oh, I feel so much better, you know, and she's a great mom. But, you know, she had to kind of go through that and, I can't imagine if you didn't feel free to express that and to be trapped in your mind with these feelings and thoughts, and you couldn't talk to anyone about it.
Well, and just think about when postpartum depression didn't have a name, like it didn't have a diagnosis. Like I just think about, like all I thought about when I was in my PPD experience was there were people in like the 40s and 50s that had babies and their husbands were like, patriarch and peace out, I'm going to work. And they would have just had to deal with it. And I'm just like, whoa, that's such a trip. And even not even that long ago, I had people comment, and this is a part of like what I mean when I'm writing this stuff is that I hope what it does too is it validates some of these people that didn't have a name for what their experience, and maybe retroactively they can go back and heal some of those wounds just by going like, yes, this is a thing, and thank you. This is a conversation that should have been had, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And so, it just blows my mind. And so I think right now, this is my feelings on the world right now, is I actually think we're really good about talking about mental health. I just think we just got to keep doing it. Yeah. And it's just like positive body image and multiculturalism and everything. It's just like, keep the conversations going. We're doing a good job and keep it going. Because, of course, we can get better, and that's what humans should do, is we should evolve, and we should get better. And there should be a point where we look back in our history, and we look back at 2005, 2010, and we go, oh, God, what were we doing? There's going to be things that we did now that were equal to segregation in, the 60s and 70s. And, of course, there will be, but we're still moving forward. And so I think it's just a matter of just persevering through some of the yuckiness to keep evolving. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have, but maybe a year or so ago, I had one patient come in, young mom, her daughters, she suffered from postpartum for the first year or so, maybe two, maybe a year and a half. And then their little one had all these autoimmune issues, always sick, cold, sinus, all this. And she came in first, I think, to bring her daughter. So we bounced her back. She was doing better within like 3 visits. But, I recognized that, Mom, you should be here too. And we talked about her postpartum, and it was brutal. She didn't have the supports. She got super judged by the in-laws. Very little compassion, and supports externally. And so she just felt like she couldn't share or talk about it. And, she's like, I'm never having kids again. And once her daughter was like healthy and kind of hit that toddler stage, she's like this amazing kid that is so easy to raise. And so she's like, oh, and you kind of forget those things. And she's like, oh, I think, we're ready to have another one. And then she got pregnant, and then she had that shift in hormones. She came in one day, she goes, oh, what the fuck did I do? Yeah. And it all comes flooding back into her head of, oh, I've got to go through that again. This is going to be terrifying. And I'm like, but, we're going to help you. We're going to help you stay balanced. We're kind of going to work through this, get you the treatments you need. You need to reach out for more help. You need to get a little more support from your husband, all these things. And she's doing so much better this time. Baby's like 8-9 months old. And she's just like, she has this in her mind that this baby at, once it's a toddler is going to be perfect like her daughter, and it's going to be so much easier. And I'm like, well, I can't guarantee that, but you're doing way better. So good for you. But these are like multiple stories. And whether or not, again, I think, like you said, some women, they have experienced this, but because they can't talk about it or they're ashamed, they bury it and don't think about it. And there's this like deep-seated shame that I think some women hold on to from those thoughts and feelings, during postpartum. And if they don't hear that it's okay and it's valid and you're not a bad person for it, I would imagine it would affect their psyche over a long period of time, holding that onto that.
Well, it's probably like any other, bullshit that we tell ourselves over at any stage of our life that we hold on to. It affects everything unless you choose to acknowledge it and not let it affect. So I think that can be a serious trigger for like mom guilt and mom shaming, which is like a whole other conversation I could have. But No, I definitely think it can weasel in there. I also think it doesn't have to too. Like I don't kind of believe there's anything that's like permanent. So, and maybe I just choose that because that makes me feel better about the fact that, oh God, okay, I went through this postpartum depression period. And I like the way you said that about your ex, where it's like you snapped in and you snapped out. And because that was the same for me. It was just kind of like crash. Like it hit and it hit hard and I was gone. And then I was just gone. Yeah. And then when I was back, I was back. I came back a little slower, but I snapped back to about halfway pretty quick. And then I slowly built back up. But I'm terrified to snap back because I've heard that too, is that you can like get somewhere and be like, oh, I'm great. And then just, anyways, so I'm trying to be receptive to anything that happens. But at the moment I feel really great and I'm thankful for that. But yeah, I think, whatever you go through, and I think this is at any phase in life, this is postpartum or not, you can bleed and leak onto your kids, and no matter what you've been through, it's going to leak onto your kids. And I think we have to not get too weird about that, because it's just like, I have decided that the only way to raise a little human being perfectly is to be a god. This is not a task that humans can actually accomplish. Because no matter what, but seriously, you fuck it up. Because either you are like letting them cry it out and get independence and kind of like sort their stuff out on their own and that, or you're comforting them and giving them secure attachment. But both of those come with like, okay, but this is neglectful. They might have abandonment issues. And then the other way, it might get attachment issues and not be able to do anything independently and get codependent issues. Like there is no way not to fuck it up. Like you are going to fuck it up no matter what you do.
And they're always going to have issues, or there's going to be things they're holding on to. But what's important then is, all our trauma is dependent on our perception of the experience. So as long as you're showing lots of love and support, doesn't matter what decision you make in that, as they grow and you allow them to express their feelings and kind of, work it and let it go, kids are incredibly resilient and will work through it, and it won't be an issue. Like kids don't have any memory of that. All they remember is how much they're loved. And even if you make choices that you think, oh, well, that's kind of a little abandoning, or, they're crying it out in their room, whatever, that child knows that they're loved, and that's what they're going to remember. They don't remember you leaving them in the room crying, but they know that mom loves them, and they're always there, and they always feel safe around mom. And if mom needs that break, and mom needs them to cry it out to go to sleep, to feel balanced so that the next day she has that love to continue to share, then that's the right decision. And that's going to be different for everyone. And sometimes you're going to do things that may appear to be the wrong decision, but it's what's right for you and your kid at that moment is most of the time pretty dang good. And we got to stop trying to figure out because there's no perfect path.
No, there isn't. That's kind of what I'm getting at, is like, okay, so just to be provocative and devil's advocate, it's like if you say your kid does remember like the thing, I'm being scary now. I'm being scary, mommy. Be careful. Don't listen to me because I might trigger you. So, but like your kid does remember that, and that was traumatic for them. But I feel like with what you said, the best thing you can do is like, well, that's what I had to do because I'm a human being. I have a limitation. That was my limitation. Yeah. So I had to give you that traumatizing experience. So maybe what I can do is show up for you and help you digest your traumatizing experience, because you're going to have them for sure. The kid is going to be like, you didn't do this. You weren't enough of that. It's going to happen for sure. But that's the humaning part. And then hopefully then what we're doing a better job of is navigating is like, yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm not, like, I'm a human too, and I make mistakes. So please tell me how I could show up for you better. What would you prefer? How can I help you heal that? Or, kind of like coming in with that. So it's going like, yeah, you're going to leak all your shit onto your kid, and your kid's going to get messed up. And that's totally okay, because I'm messed up and you're messed up and we're all messed up. And this is where we go back full circle to opening the light on the shadows, because we're all screwed up. And it's a glorious vicious cycle, because the only person that could raise a kid and not screwed up is gods and goddesses.
Yeah. Well, and the key thing I think you said in there was, when you're honest and you apologize and you help them through it. Because one of the most important things we can do for our children is to apologize and just say, hey, I know that was difficult. I divorced your mom. How do you feel about it? This is why. This is what we're working for. I'm sorry if it hurt you or you had difficulties with it, but how are you feeling now? What can we do? Go through it. When I mess up with my kids, when I, I think the time between the divorce and, there's about 2 or 3 years there, I think, where I was, where I didn't see my kids as often. And so every time we'd have time, I would plan these like big things and what we wanted to do. And if it didn't work out exactly the way I wanted or how I pictured it, to have this amazing memory for my kids, it would irritate me and I'd get angry. And then I would lose it and I would yell. And I would just feel so shitty. Mm-hmm. But, once I settled, the first thing I did was I always apologized to my boys. Mm-hmm. I said, that was a shitty thing for me to do. I'm sorry, guys. That was my fault. It was just me. And I explained why I felt that way and that that's not the right way to do it. But it happens sometimes. And then they learn that I'm, just as weak as they are, and that I'm trying to do my best and that I'm honest and I'm, so that when they have difficulties like that and they freak out, it's just, then they know the model. Okay, yeah, I did this, but I just have to apologize and they're going to love me and we're going to work through this. And because I can show that and model that behavior, my boys are really good at that. Mm-hmm. And they know that no matter what, we can always forgive each other and we're going to move forward and try to make things the best. But if you don't, teach that to your children, then they have this perfection complex and like all these people commenting on your thing, like, no, this is supposed to be this perfect, beautiful thing. So I'm going to convince myself that it is, ignore my feelings and tell everyone that it's perfect. Mm-hmm. It's not fun.
No, well, I have this theory too, because I've had people who are advocating for me and being on my side with these things, and they're like, everyone goes through what you went through. And I'm like, I don't know that everyone does. And I'm just saying, like, I do. I believe that there are people who give birth to their baby and they do that magical imprint thing and they love that newborn experience. I believe that there are people that go through that. And I believe there are people that when I write what I write, they have no idea what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. I believe that those people exist too. I also believe that those people, whatever phase that their kids are in, I think they will also meet a phase with their children where they will go through that at some point.
And those are usually the ones that have a hard time when they're teenagers.
Well, possibly. But that's what I'm talking about. Is like, well, maybe it didn't show up for you in the newborn stage. Maybe it's going to show up when they're 7 or when they're 13 or when they're 18 or when they're 40. Like, it's just you, but you're going to have a time with your kid where you're like, I don't get what's happening right now. Like, there's going to be a hurdle. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, again, it's just like encouraging people to lean into compassion and go, I don't understand this. How could I understand it more? Or, something. And then kind of based on, like, I'm now going back to something you said, but I do also think accountability will save the world. Mm-hmm. Like we deal with like things like bullying. And actually, I think I actually called them out on that. Oh, I did in the article. I called them out. It's like, how are you going to teach your kid about bullying when you're a bully? Like, it's like, how are you supposed to? And so we teach about how to stand up to bullies and how to call out bullies. And it's like, but what about when we're the bully? Because everyone has been a bully. But how many stories have you been where someone said, I was bullied in high school, versus how many have you heard that said, I was bullied in high school? Everyone talks about being bullied in high school, but there's no bullies.
Yeah. I was a bully at times.
I was a bully?
Yeah.
Like, I was horrible to my brother. Like, worst sister ever.
And it shows.
Right?
It shows.
Yeah.
I'm just teasing.
So, poor traumatized kid. I just feel like and I have gone back with my brother and said, when this happened, like, that was super crappy. I'm sorry about that. And there's even been times now where I can default, I can feel it. I'll go back into like, we'll regress 20 years and I'll just all of a sudden be picking on him. And I'm like, oh, this isn't cool. Yeah. So I just feel like if we can, and it's ugly though. It's ugly when we have to call out our crappy behavior, and especially when it's something as unattractive as like bullying or rage, or like I feel like depression and sadness are almost easier because they get compassion. Like when you're sad, someone's like, "Oh, let me help you."
Yeah.
But when you're angry, no one's sitting there going, "What do you need?"
Yeah.
Like they're sitting there going,
immediate
like,
judgment.
Yeah, they're flipping you the bird and going, "Screw you." It doesn't invoke a compassionate response, but it needs compassion too.
Yeah.
And I mean, I also think rage can get really unhealthy. So of course there's lines and boundaries there, blah, blah, blah. We could get a whole other conversation about that. But just generally speaking, it's just having a bit more understanding for what someone's going through when they're having a reaction that's intimidating.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I love that how you're saying that we need to be more, you know, all of us need a little bit more accountable for our words and our actions so that we can help each other grow. I think when, you know, there's certain acceptable behaviors that are bullying and harmful that our culture just accepts. And so everyone kind of fits into that and they don't see that their actions are harmful because, well, those are accepted. Bullying or, you know, the things they say or whatever. But over time, you know, like I've mentioned this on a couple podcasts that, you know, our morality evolves and it's separate from religions, you know, because our morality evolves faster than religions do. you know, for instance, we always thought it was okay to beat wives. It's in the scriptures that it's okay.
Yeah, as long as it's no bigger than your thumb.
Yeah. Whereas now we're just like, no, that's not acceptable at all. And
not even smaller than your thumb.
yeah. Then it's just wild that we, you know, still hold on to those old traditions and patterns as, although that should never change and that's always acceptable. But no, we as humans continually evolve and we need to adapt our feelings and our beliefs and our actions to fit what helps our community best rather than going back to some old, you know, like those statements that people say, oh, things used to be better. And I'm like, okay, you think it was better for that one thing. But if you thought about how, you know, if we went back 50 years ago, how's that for women? How's that for blacks? How's that for natives?
Seriously, I was driving in a taxi. Where was I? I was in LA and I was driving with my Uber driver. It was a black man. And we were talking about Make America Great Again. And I'm like, I feel like if you go backwards, it wasn't better for you or me. So what is this great again thing? And it's like economically, okay, at what cost?
Yeah.
I mean, like I believe in a healthy economy. Now I'm going down a really bad political hole here. But anyway,
all I got to do is listen to what Michelle was talking about last night. Don't worry.
Okay.
We've gone way over on the whole politics stuff. So you're welcome to say whatever you like.
Well, thankfully. Okay. I'm just saying I believe in a healthy economy. I do. Like I really, really do. What is it? My mom gave me this book called The Purple People, or There Should Be More Purple People. And it's basically like kind of making a play on like the red and the blue and the Democrat and it's saying purple people. And I kind of feel like I'm a purple person because it's like, yeah, I see this stuff and I want to pull from here and I want to pull from here. I don't want you to put me over here or over there. Like I want to like blend. And I do feel like that's part of the evolving is that we get it in, like humans are confused by duality, right? We're confused because we feel like we have to pick between this or this when both of these can coexist. Yeah. And that's such an important thing to know and be aware of even during depression is going, because I was sitting there going, how can I feel this way when I have a super supportive, amazing husband, I have family, I have friends, I got people coming out the wazoo that would like drop everything to come and help me. I'm a very blessed person. I have a roof over my head. I do not at this time have financial difficulties. Like I have everything I need. Everything I need. Why do I feel like this? This doesn't make any sense. And it's sitting there and I'd sit there and be like, I'm so grateful because I have my husband. So how can I be grateful and I can be depressed? I can. Yeah. I can be grateful and I can be depressed. And I can experience horrible, horrible anguish and experience really wonderful blessings. Like these can coexist. And I think that as soon as like humans evolve to understand and embrace paradoxical concepts, we will start to like see a really big shift. Yeah. And then maybe we'll get, more purple people.
Yeah, I love that. Well, it's the same like, with emotionally, we have this extreme that, like right now, there's only two emotions that people think they can feel, either happiness on one extreme or depression on the other. And people think you only flip between the two of those. So if you're not completely happy, then you must be depressed. And that's all they kind of accept. Where one thing that I hope, and I talk about in my course, to encourage people to have a gradient of emotion.
We're both hand talkers.
So we keep hitting our mics here. But this idea that, like I talked to my son about this too, and I was like, when you're having a rough day, I want you to give it a name, to that. Because it's, you're not depressed today, and you're not happy. So where are you on that scale? Let's give it 10 names on the scale of emotion so that you can realize that things do change each day. Well, today I'm not depressed, I'm a little melancholy. Or I feel a little frustrated today, or I'm feeling a little stuck, or whatever it is, so that you're not always saying, I'm just depressed. Because you aren't an emotion. I'm a depressed person, I'm an angry person, I'm this. No, that emotion does not define you. Because emotions are a signal of perceived imbalance. So when you feel an emotion, your brain predicts based off what's happening and tells you, okay, well, when these things happen, you usually feel this way. So it gives you that motion to tell you, to predict, kind of give you an idea on how you think you should respond to this situation. So it gives you that emotion. And that is just a signal to show you how you're perceiving this situation. You have a choice with that signal. Am I going to buy into it? Do I believe it? Or is it unnecessary? Is it something that I choose not to, it's not necessary right now. Do I need to be angry about that? Well, maybe not. And then, so we have this emotion and we think, well, I have to either be angry or I have to repress it. And neither help us because these emotions don't particularly, like expressing emotion doesn't necessarily get anything done. We're stuck in that emotion and repressing them. That just makes us sick, internally and in our mind. So with every extreme emotion, there's that synergistic expression, and anger is self-assertion. So you're standing up for yourself, so you're taking that energy and you're turning it into action. And if we can understand these what emotions are really for and how they work that way, then rather than getting stuck in these emotions and doing it, it's like, okay, your body and mind are telling you how you're seeing this situation. What are you going to do about it? And so we have to take those steps to kind of release this energy. And for you, you're an incredibly creative person. So to be able to take that energy and turn it into something so you can like share it and help and support and kind of stand up for yourself, that helps you release that emotion in a healthy, positive way to make change, but also to help you feel lighter and to let it go and to be more in the moment. And what a beautiful way to do it. It helps that you've had lots of practice in finding those creative ways to let it go with your music, with your writing, all of those things. But all of us, when we're feeling like an emotion is too much, because emotions aren't these external things that control us. They are just a signal, and they provide us that energy to make change. And so by acting on it in what I believe is a very healthy way, in the way you did with the writing that article and now responding with self-assertion and standing up for yourself, it's just healthy ways. Do you feel you find that where when you get stuck, being creative is that tool to help you?
Yeah, the whole visual I got while you were talking was just really cool, so I'm just going to share it. But I was like seeing it as like emotion as like an electric current, and so we can either like stifle it, which just means you're like buzzing and you're basically self-electrocuting, or you can direct it and electrocute someone else, or you can channel it and you can invest it into something, and then you've got light bulbs. Yeah. So it's like that to me is like healthy outlets.
You're lighting the way for others.
Oh my gosh, we're just coming full circle on this. Makes me so happy. What was funny with postpartum depression, and I didn't actually know that. So, okay, I kind of wish I had a bit more postpartum depression education, because I assumed it was depression in the postpartum period. I didn't realize that there was all these other symptoms, which I'm not going to lie to you, I can't even remember right now. But I had this full checklist of symptoms when I actually did search it at one point. And it was like stuff like I couldn't make a decision. Like if my husband were to be like, do you want spearmint gum or peppermint gum? I'd be like, I have no idea. I don't know. I haven't. And I'd get overwhelmed by that choice.
Yeah.
And I would get overwhelmed actually very easily. Like I remember my son didn't cry all day and he started crying and it was like maybe 2 or 3 minutes and I was like, I can't handle this. I have to leave. I can't do this. And it's like, well, it's 3 minutes of crying. Like it's really not a big deal. And so my brain is sitting there like trying to make sense of stuff. And anyways, there was all these symptoms and those are like a couple, but I couldn't focus. And I actually did. I went to go write stuff down. I couldn't even write. It was weird. I was like, I had no brain. It was it's so hard to explain. I started texts to people to try to explain that I wasn't doing well. And I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm feeling though. I'm not doing well, but I don't know what I'm going to say when they ask me how they can help. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I couldn't talk. Yeah. The best thing I did actually was I went to an intuitive and all I had to do was sit there and say yes and no, because she was like, okay, are you finding that this is happening or you're noticing this or you're struggling with that? And I was just sitting there like, oh, thanks for putting words to all this because I couldn't do it. And so that was really cathartic, actually. It was just like having someone kind of talk for me, talk my stuff out because I couldn't do it. I couldn't write it out. I couldn't sing it out. Singing made me cry because I was like, in that mindset of my career's over and I'm all washed up. So singing was just a trigger for me at the time and I refused to do it. I wouldn't. And Brendan was like, you should sing to our son. And I'm like, nope, I can't. Yeah. I can't do it. And so I'd sing like I'm a little teapot or something stupid, but I would not sing to him. And that one I'm still actually struggling with to get it back, but it's coming slowly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's directing it into the light bulbs. I guess there. I digressed off my point.
If it comes back, let me know. But it's interesting too, so from a chemical point of view, when we're dealing with postpartum depression, there is, and I'm sorry, everyone, I can't remember what it is right now, but there's a compound that the body provides for us that really affects our mental health and our well-being and everything, and where our brain's at. And it is produced normally through our body, most of our lives, but during pregnancy, that compound that is sent to you and your hormones and brains to get balance in the last 6 weeks is going straight to the placenta. And so there's a reserve in our body that depending on how much is in there or how well that reserve is, it can last usually long enough that we can work on that reserve until the body starts replacing it and builds it back up. But if there's a lot of bleeding or you're kind of deficient in that to begin with, then when you give birth, then you don't have enough of that afterwards to balance your hormones and feed the brain. And they believe that's what maybe chemically causes postpartum. So traditionally, like if you look at animals, what's the one thing animals do right after birth?
Eat their placenta?
They eat the placenta. Because it has those compounds in it so it's been sent to that, and so the idea is that replenishes the body right away. In Chinese medicine, what they do is they take the placenta and they dry it and grind it into powder that's either used as tea or herbs for that first 6 weeks to prevent this. So we're getting that back in the system. Now, not a lot of people are too excited about basically eating their placenta. But
must be my community. I actually know quite a few people.
Yeah. We did that with our kids, and we didn't do it the first time because I didn't know much about it because I was, I wasn't in Chinese medicine at that time. But for our next couple, that's what we did, and I believe it made quite a difference. Now, I'm not saying everyone has to go out and do this, but to understand that, it is not just an emotional thing, but it's an actual physical depletion in the body. And that's why you can't think straight, your memory, you're indecisive. There's this deficiency in the liver and those enzymes, and it's causing this imbalance. So it's, it's not in your head, people. This is very real, and it is happening, and you're not a bad person if it happens. And even if you do all the right things, it still might happen. So you have to be very patient and forgiving with yourself and reach out for help. Yeah. To even say that someone is bad for their experience and their difficulties is just unkind. It doesn't help anyone.
Well, it helps them feel better. So there you go. I'll sacrifice myself for the cause. It's fine.
Yeah. So what tools are you using currently to help you?
Oh, I have a
Find your
plethora
balance.
now, which is so exciting. I've got to pull out the big guns with this one. So I have a prescription from the doctor, which I'm taking a lot less now, which is awesome. The support groups have been super, super helpful. Those online Facebook support groups are my favorite resource, actually. And my other favorite resource was therapy, talking to a counselor, and she was so helpful. I have the best therapist in the whole wide world, so she was awesome. And then,
Do you want to plug her?
oh yeah, I could. I don't know if she's taking people right now, but her name's Tracy Sutton. She's amazing. And then, like I mentioned to you, I saw a friend. She's an energy worker and she's an intuitive. And of course, I'm going through all this during isolation lockdown.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't utilize a lot of resources. I probably would have come and seen you.
I felt terrible because both Chris and I were like, Tanya's being really quiet. Is Tanya okay?
Where'd she go?
She's going to be all right. And I'm just for me, it's so hard when I can't be there for my patients and I'm locked up at home. And so, part of me even was just I don't know, if I reach out, what can I do for her?
I know, right? It was a really weird time.
Yeah, so hard.
And so, yeah, it was funny. So a lot of those resources. So I was just lucky because that intuitive energy worker, and I'll plug her too, but she's a friend of mine. And so that was sort of hey man, I need some help. Would you take me?
Yeah.
I'm healthy and I've been in isolation for this long and all this stuff. So she took me, and her name's Melanie Dawn. Do you know her?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah. She's a yoga teacher locally, and she's doing more intuitive work. She operates. She calls it Reiki, but I don't. And the only reason is because I've had Reiki a few times and it just does nothing for me. But her, it's it's a weirdly cool experience, and it's very, very she physically touches you, and she talks you through stuff at the same time. And it's a really cool combination.
That sounds like Hakomi.
It's similar.
Hakomi psychotherapy?
Yeah, not quite Hakomi. I do have a friend with Hakomi too, and I ended up seeing her later, but that happened to happen much later because the massage, she does massage too, and she was later and when things were reopening. But it's Hakomi-ish, but it's not technically. And so, she's unreal. So
Lovely.
I highly recommend her. And I think you can find her at melaniedawnyoga.com.
That's fantastic. We'll have to have you back in because I want to talk about suicide with you.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Because I have lots of opinions on that.
So do I. And I have jokes that people don't like.
Well, really, if you really want to talk about discussions in mental health in general are something that we need to talk about and how much they help. But I do believe suicide, we need to talk about it even more.
Oh, way more.
Because, of course, my opinion, and I'll just drop this so that, in a few months we can think about this.
Yes, we can percolate.
Love to bring you back in and talk about this because it's a discussion that we need to have. In that I honestly feel that suicide should be legalized. And my purpose for this is I do think we need to set up centers where if you, because getting in that dark place, there's a high percentage of people that ponder suicide, that think about it, think of it as an option, and then there's that other, a smaller percentage that actually think about what to do to commit suicide. And then there's those that get in this dark window. And it is anywhere from 6 to 18 hours, this dark window that people get into. And if they've had a rough day and there's, implements available, they will go to that place. I have had patients come in, sit down and tell me, I want to kill myself today. And luckily, there's a treatment within Chinese medicine that only takes me 2.5 minutes to pull them out of that dark space. They don't want to do it anymore. They still might consider it or think about it, but that's a different level entirely.
It is, yeah.
But if we could take away the stigma and provide somewhere where someone could go and they check themselves in and they say, I'm in this really dark place. I want to end my life. And, and if we are truly a compassionate society, we would have this available and we'd say, all right, sweetheart, come here. We need you to fill out this paperwork. We need you to do these counseling sessions. We need you to contact they can't necessarily come and harass you, but we put them up for whether that's 48 hours or 72 hours. Mm-hmm. And they're loved and supported and, given some things. And if at the end of those 72 hours, if they choose to kill themselves, they want to take their life, then someone is there to love and support and do it in a nonviolent way to guide them out of life. Mm-hmm. Because to me, we are so compassionate when it comes to our animals that when they are suffering and at end of life, we're totally fine with, guiding them out of this life in a very compassionate, loving way. Mm-hmm. But we refuse to do this with humans. Mm-hmm. And the percentage of people that would actually choose suicide after all of that support and love is so low.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like you said, even getting them out of that window.
Yeah. And I think if we could get to that place, we would save so many lives and we would change that narrative and that experience with suicide, and we would be a much more compassionate society in general. We got to take away this idea that this is a sin and that this is like this terrible thing. We have to get a better understanding of what brings people to that place and what it feels like and what happens. We need to research it. We need to be open about it. And then we could truly help people. But just not discussing it and making this terrible thing is incredibly harmful. Mm-hmm. And if we can support people in that way, we could learn so much and save so many more lives. So that's I'll drop that on you.
Okay, cool. Okay? I get to go home with that.
We can think about that and we'll come back in a few months here, have a discussion again on that because I think it's something we need to consider as a culture. Definitely. So everyone can send me nasty comments about that later.
The Suicide Center by Jared McCollum.
Yeah. But it is.
You want to talk about provocative?
Yeah. Let's drop all that stuff out there. You should, they'd never let me write in the paper, but if they did,
they wouldn't. And you know what? It's probably a good choice.
Thanks, Tanya. Well, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Anything else you want to share before we, cut out here? Any thought that was trailing that I interrupted on? And
nope. TanyaRyan.ca. There.
Yeah. We'll put all your information in below. And, if you want to have a little bit of fun, definitely check out the Western Wheel on, what is that, the third week or the second week
I think
every
I'm
month?
usually the second week.
Second week every month. And the, what do they call that?
Opinion column.
Opinion column. Mm-hmm. And TanyaRyan.ca. Follow her on Instagram. We'll put all that information in. Go listen to her music on Spotify. I'll put those links in as well.
Oh, gosh. So you're going to link them out.
I am.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did Madison's and I had to put in like 12 links. And I'm sure you have just as many. And I even left some out.
Yeah, just leave some out. It's fine. It's good. There's lots there.
Yeah. But, we talked with Madison about the power of music and how, in times it can define our emotions and support our emotions and help us heal. And you've got some beautiful music out there.
Yeah. Thanks.
And one of my favorite songs, I don't even know if it's too explicit even for this podcast, but...
Wow, that's heavy duty.
One of your favorites. Oh. I don't know, Give Me the D?
Oh. I thought you were talking about one of your favorite songs in general, but it's one of my songs.
No, one of yours.
Oh. I'm honored. I'm honored you have a favorite song. And yes, that is nicely explicit, isn't it? I get all the explicits in there.
There's a lot of your songs I think are hilarious.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
You always, there's very few artists, and again, country music is great for this because they do tell a great story. Mm-hmm. But yours always have this, just like your column, there's this quip and funniness and play in your music, which is beautiful. I love that. We need that, when you can listen to a song and it can make you laugh at the same time, that's perfection in my mind.
Oh,
Good
thanks,
job.
Jared.
Thank you so much, everyone. Tanya Ryan, check her out. Check all the links. She's definitely someone to follow because she's hilarious. Even if you just watch her stories every day on Instagram.
I'll post my husband. He's actually the funny one.
Yeah. I'm waiting for all the reels on Instagram or TikTok she's gonna do with this baby.
I know. I got to work on my TikTok game. I'm practicing TikTok right now. I hate myself for it a little bit, but it's happening.
I don't think I'll ever get there.
It's
but
hard.
I'm okay with
People put a lot of time into that shit. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I can't do this.
Yeah, I'm not that dedicated to
I gotta
online stuff. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to. You can't lose. If you lose it, you lose it. You got to stay on the whole social media game. I'm trying to stay ahead of it here.
No, like with anything, just as you mentioned earlier with your writing, you are reaching out for those that, are your people and you need that voice and, that flag that you're holding up for your people. I feel the same way with my practice in that not everyone fits in my practice and with me. And I'm not looking to serve everyone. I'm looking for those that fit me and fit my practice. And it's the same with your music and your profession, There's, being at the very top is not healthy. You're looking for that, that middle road where, you have this career that lasts as long as you want and you've got a good following. You've got those like 1,000 hardcore fans and that's all you need to have a great career and a great life. And you continue on this path and it won't be hard at all for you to achieve that.
Oh, thanks. I'm going to come here more often. I like this. This is nice.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. And, if you listen to this podcast on whether it's a Apple or Spotify or anything, if you take a chance to review, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, do it. Then more people can find the podcast.
Yeah, there we go.
Subscribe.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening. Well, that was a lot of fun. I always have a great time hanging out with Tanya and having chats with her. She's one of those inspiring and, together people in the world. So talented in so many ways. And her, confidence and, love for speaking her mind makes her a very special and wonderful person. And we need more people like her in the world. And I appreciate her boldness and stepping out and being vulnerable to the whole community to help a lot of women. In my clinic, I see a lot of postpartum. We can help it quite a bit. But that suffering is very real and it is scary. And when we, shame women for just telling the truth and being honest about how they feel, it is cruel and unkind, and it's not necessary. So I am very grateful for her, putting herself out there and sharing that story. It's definitely worth a listen if you want to go on to westernwheel.com, I think it could be. I'm not sure if it's .com or .ca here in Canada, but the articles will be there. I read her new article just yesterday that came out, kind of her rebuttal to these people, and it was very well done and showed a lot of maturity and, confidence. And she just was very grateful for her community and all those that support her and, all the good things they did to help her through that. And it was lovely. And, let's hope those that were quick to judge and maybe say some hurtful things, that they may think twice and realize how what she shared was very helpful. And that when we do talk about mental health, it helps everyone. And, I saw another little saying today on Instagram where it was, a little saying that, when we share our mental health on Facebook, it's we're crying out for attention or a cry for help, and somebody crossed it out and said, a very healthy practice. And I totally agree. You know, the more we share and are honest about those things, the more people can learn and grow and help one another. You know, Instagram and Facebook isn't just for all the positive things in our lives. And being open and honest and seeking support, there's no shame in that. So thank you, Tanya, for your words and your laughter and your fun. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This was a really fun episode. And again, if you want to learn more about the 5 elements of letting go, the course is at, you can find everything linked to my other podcast with my son at jaredmccollum.com. And of course, all the links are below. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening, and take care of everyone in your community. And again, don't be afraid to really say how you're feeling today. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.